We are here at St. George's. The meeting is happening behind us. It's the NEC Lekgotla. The NEC Lekgotla is not only limited to the 86 members of the ANC, but they also invite people from government, the ministers, the MECs, and alliance partners. Because this meeting, Alicia, discusses the program towards the State of the Nation address. You know that in 2 weeks' time, the president is expected to deliver the State of the Nation address. And of course, the issue about his future was discussed because before this NEC Lekgotla, there was a regular NEC meeting which took 2 days. Last night they discussed about his future, and you know that despite that the ANC has not necessarily confirmed, but sources have indicated that the top six has been delegated to deal with this issue of how to manage the issue of his stepping aside, because they want to minimize the damage as much as possible. Of course, he's part of the NEC Lekgotla because he is a deployee of the ANC. He may not necessarily be the president of the ANC at the moment, but the position that he holds as head of state, so he has been sent there by the ANC. That is why when the ANC is drafting the program for government, they must have all their deployees, him being their number one deployee. So that is what is happening right now, Alicia. And of course, time and again, President Cyril Ramaphosa and President Zuma do meet. So the issue that we have raised, that is he aware of it? Definitely he is aware of it. It's an issue of how they are dealing with it so that they can minimize the damage, Alicia.
All right, Mzwandile, maybe tell us about, you've just told us the people or the different constituencies that make up this Lekgotla. I want to know from you what in particular would be the role of the alliance partners, because we've heard, we've just played a clip that you earlier had, that interview with Solima Paila, who is very adamant that if should any need arise, they are going to call for President Jacob Zuma to be recalled. Do you get the same sense of notion amongst the other alliance partners? What are they saying about this notion to have the president recalled?
Perhaps what is not clear is at this stage is SANCO, but COSATU already they've made their position very clear that they believe there should be one center of power, with President Cyril Ramaphosa having been elected as the ANC president, so they believe he should take over. And of course, COSATU and SABC, even well before the ANC elective conference, they came out very openly to say President Zuma needed to step aside. So I'm not sure at the moment about the position of SANCO, but those other alliance partners, so they clearly believe that the president needs to give way to the new leadership that was elected in December last year.
All right, so Mzwandile, this just a side note. I had an analyst in studio who believes that there is currently a list now that is known to people that we can't even be sure of, that supposedly consists of Ramaphosa's supposed cabinet should President Jacob Zuma be recalled. Have you heard any of such talk where you are in location at this stage?
You'd remember, Alicia, that as soon as President Ramaphosa was elected as ANC president, that list you're talking about quickly did the rounds. So there would always be speculation on these sort of issues. But what I can say now, nothing has changed in terms of the deployment at the national level. For example, Alicia, I can just tell our viewers that as far as we know, President Zuma is scheduled to travel to Liberia tomorrow to attend the inauguration of George Weah. You remember George Weah was a soccer superstar, in fact the only African to ever win a World Cup Player of the Year. So he has transformed from being a soccer player. He's now a politician, and of course he won the election in a second round. So those duties are still continuing, and we know that a few days after Liberia, the President of the Republic is expected to travel again to Ethiopia to attend the African Union, whereas the president of the ANC and the deputy president of the country will be traveling to Davos tomorrow. So far, the work still continues, and I think they just want to give themselves enough time to negotiate and perhaps not rush things, so that whatever agreement they reach perhaps is liked, or rather satisfies all sides.
All right, and Mzwandile, when this motion was raised from the floor to recall the president, was there a substantiative motion or of a preferred candidate of somebody that would be a suitable caretaker president in the interim, or in the eventuality that, of course, President Jacob Zuma is recalled tomorrow?
You'd remember that the issue that we are talking about, for now, we rely by and large on sources.
Yeah.
So some of the information may not necessarily be very accurate. So I would not want to delve into those specifics, because at the moment we don't have those kinds of specifics. All we know is that one of the newly elected members of the NEC, David Masondo, stood up and said, you know, there's this issue perhaps that the NEC needed to look at. And then, of course, he was backed by other members. And the matter was discussed. As the matter was discussed, obviously from the sources, then it was agreed that maybe the NEC does not need to take a resolution, but this matter must be delegated to the top 6, who will then engage with the head of state and find a proper and amicable way to really resolve this matter, because it does look like the NEC came to the conclusion that by the time 2019 comes, he should have vacated the office. But the question, it looks like now, is a when, then if.
All right, and Mzwandile, let me take you back to this previous point. You were talking about the two centers of power, and of course this debate was very rife, and of course we know that the new spokesperson of the ANC was totally dismissed this notion. But talk to us about this. Let's talk about these two centers of power. Who makes what decisions currently between the ANC president and of course President Jacob Zuma, causing this discussion to arise? I mean, we want to know who's responsible for which decisions.
Alicia, you would recall that currently the party that is in government, that is running government, is the ANC.
Yes.
So which means whoever is in government must take his or her mandate from the ANC. Mm-hmm. For the past 10 years, President Jacob Zuma has been the president of the ANC and the president of the country. So there had been no issue about the two centers of power, because we knew that the president of the ANC is the same person as someone in union buildings.
Country,
so that's why it didn't arise. The reason there is this issue now of two centers of power, this is how you can put it. President Zuma is the boss of President Ramaphosa in government. Okay. President Ramaphosa is the boss of President Zuma in the party. Mm-hmm. So you see, you're talking about two important institutions here. But as they have said, the ANC is the political center. So which means those regular meetings that are happening between President Zuma and President Ramaphosa are meant to deal with those issues, because the ANC instructs, and then obviously through its president, and then its president will then meet the head of state, and then they'll discuss how it must be done. That is why, I mean, when we spoke to President Ramaphosa in East London, he was actually saying this thing of two centers of power is really not a big deal, because the center is one, the center is ANC. So the only difference is that the person who is in charge of Luthuli House is not the same person. So it goes without saying to say whatever needs to happen in government must be sanctioned by Luthuli House. So as I put it, one is the boss in government, the other is the boss in the party, but the party is the center.
Nicely explained, Mzwandile. Thank you so much for that clarification. A question that I've been long seeking clarity upon, and that is, of course, the issue around the two centers of power. Who makes which decisions? And as we've heard, there are presidential correspondent Mzwandile Mbeje joining us live from outside of Irene. And he does seem to say that, of course, the president seems to be aware of the latest developments to have him recalled, as, of course, it was discussed last night, even though he only made it to the Lekgotla this afternoon. We'll definitely keep touching base with our reporters on the scene and give you all the latest developments from that NEC meeting.